we have the valve diameter, and we have the lift of the cam, or what the actual lift is of the valve with the cam times the rocker ratio. And that gives us valve diameter times 0.98 times pi, which is 3.14, times the lift gives us the curtain area. Now, I'm going to explain to you real quick about why this 0.98 is in here. Here's a pro stock valve. Goodness gracious. I'm going to do better. Y'all bear with me a minute. I'm losing people, I understand, but we've got to fix this deal. This is ridiculous. My shirt's backwards. Now my shirt is right. Whew. Okay. Man, it's a good thing I had the air conditioner on me, because I would have been pretty upset by now. No, I would have been warm. All right, I'm going to turn it towards the table and try and get it right. Y'all just don't give up on me. Patience is a virtue, men and ladies. Golly, look at that. I am the right size round, and the writing's right side around. Woo, that didn't take long. Goodness gracious. Okay, here's a pro stock valve. All right, this is 2.73 inches. 2.73 inches. So the 0.98 is the actual size, effective size of the valve. So what we do is we measure the valve size, like this valve right here is 2.73, and then we do it times 0.98, because the 0.98 makes your caliper go down to 680, and 680 is where the valve job would be. Golly, man. Can you tell I did not practice this at all? And if you were here in person, I could do a lot better job with that. Anyway, times 0.98 gives you the diameter of the valve job. This is the valve job, not the valve size. So this is the effective curtain area. Can y'all see this all right? Okay, valve diameter times 0.98, which is the valve job, times pi, which is 3.14, times the lift, gives you curtain area. Now let's talk about what the curtain area is. The curtain area is what the effective area where the camshaft lift comes into play with the diameter. I have some examples that I wrote down over here. Can you read that? Thrasher. 1.9 valve in a twin cam thrasher with a 650 lift gives me 3.8 inches of curtain area. 3.8 inches of curtain area, okay? A B2, this is supposed to be a B, not a 132. A B2 S&S head, twin cam, with a 2.3 intake valve and a 680 lift cam gives us 4.81 inches of curtain area. So you can see that's why these make so much more power than these. They both fit on the same engine, but this one has 3.8 inches of curtain area, and this one has 4.8 inches of curtain area. Now let's go to a Milwaukee 8. With a stock valve, which is a 1.57 inches times 2, times the 0.98, the 0.98 times the lift gives you 4.68 inches of curtain area. So you can see that a stock M8 with a 485 lift cam has more curtain area flow potential than a twin cam B2. Now if we take that same Milwaukee 8 and we put 2mm over intake valves in it, that's a 1.65 inches times the 0.98 of the valve job size times the lift of 0.585 that we use in our Thrasher kits, gives us 5.9 inches of curtain area. 5.9 inches of curtain area. Now if you'll look up here, you can see the Pro Stock with this really big valve that we used in the 160 cubic inch S&S and HRA engines. We had a 1.25 lift. That's like a 600 lobe with a 2-to-1 rock arm. 10.5 inches of curtain area. Yeah. So when you put it on the flow bench and you open it to 1 inch or 1/200 and you get 700 CFM or 600 CFM, that's really cool. But the real picture is the curtain area, because y'all, it's time and area. It's the time and area. That means how long is the valve open? What's the area? And how long is the valve closed? And that time and area. So you can do it. You can put really big valves in and have a lot of flow potential, and open the valve late and close the valve early, and put a bigger valve in it. Or you can put more lift in it. There's 3 ways to do it: bigger valve, more lift, or more duration, which means more area, more time. More time, open and close. All the engines have the same amount of time. They all have 720 degrees of rotation. I drew a picture right here of a 2-valve, typical, just to draw a circle. It's a 2-valve head. It's got an intake and an exhaust, and then here's a 4-valve head. It has 2 intakes and 2 exhausts. It wouldn't be real hard for a man to realize that this could flow a lot more air than this, even with smaller valves, because it's got so much more curtain area with smaller valves. Now think back to my little story I said a minute ago about the guy that has the same compression, 12-to-1 compression, and he had 300 cranking compression, whereas the 2-valve, he had 12-to-1 compression and he had 200 cranking compression. So that was the time and area part of it. Now, what's the most important? Well, of course, it's how much power it makes and where it makes the power. So the cam timing helps us pick out where we can make the most power. It helps us pick out at what RPM and at what time we in the power curve. So someone asked me, what's the cam timing? What's the cam timing? How do you decide what you want for cam timing? Well, there's a lot of factors. You know, it's how much is the head flow, what's the curtain area potential, how big are the valves, and if you figure all that out and you start moving the things around, you'll find after doing it for 40 years, you'll figure it out. That's just how it works. A lot of folks want to know about the port size. Do you need a small port for high velocity? Do you need a big port for flow? Well, that depends on the cam timing. In our business, the way we work here is we haven't ever had a head that flows too much. We're looking for more flow. We're looking for the most we can get in the engine in the least amount of time. Because if you have a long duration camshaft, you're opening the valve too soon while the piston's still coming up. And if you have a long duration cam, it closes too late, so a lot of the compression pressure goes back out the intake. And that brings up another question. A guy says, well, what's reversion? Well, there's with a camshaft with a lot of duration, there's a lot of reversion. Pistons coming up when the intake valve opens, and the pistons coming up when the intake valve closes. So think about it. The goal is to get the air through the intake into the engine. And if the piston's coming up when the intake valve opens, there's a chance for reversion for it to come back out. When the piston goes to the bottom, and the intake valve is still open, the air quits going in, and then when the piston starts coming back up and you snap the intake valve shut, if you don't do it soon enough, you get reversion back out the intake. So how do you avoid reversion? Well, you find out where your power peak is, where's your operating range. You're going to run it down the low RPM, 3,000, 4,000 like a street bike, a Harley, or you're going to run it up high like 12,000 or 10,000 or 14,000 like some of the pro stock 4-cylinders are doing. You want the cam timing to suit the trapping efficiency of the engine and the RPM range you're going to run. The reversion problem is there's no camshaft that can do everything. That's why it's not important, but that's why our industry has variable valve timing now, variable cam timing. They have camshafts that put long duration in at high RPM, they put short duration at low RPM so that we can get a broader power curve. You want really short timing at low RPM and you want long timing at high RPM so you can do the trapping efficiency perfect for each RPM. I tell folks all the time, I said when you pick out a camshaft for your Harley, your race car, your street bike, whatever, when you pick out the cam, and there's a lot of important pieces to the puzzle. It's not just this cam on the market. You look it up and it says S&S has a cam, Woods has a cam, T-Man has a cam, Andrews has, all these, Cyclorama, everybody has a cam, several cams, and the one that's on the internet that the most people said that's the one they use, folks figure that's the best one, but it's not. It's the one that's sold the most. It's not the best one. Does it work good? Yeah. But do you have stock heads? Do you have ported heads? Just know, this is proof right here that if your head flows more, you need a shorter duration cam. If your head flows less, you need a longer duration cam. And it's when the intake valve closes. Typically, 4-valve engines have short cams. Now I'm going to give you an example on this. Let's just take a Harley 110 Screaming Eagle CVO. It's got a 110 kit in it, and it has these big valves, and it comes with a 255 cam from Harley. All right, the CVOs come with a 255 cam. It's a very nice cam. It's got 255 duration, maybe that's what it's got. And then you've got the Milwaukee 8, has 4 valves, and it has less than 200 degrees compression, cam time, and duration has less than 200. So it has 50 degrees less. On a pro stock engine, our 2-valve engines run 20 degrees more duration than the 4-valve because we flow so much more air with the 4-valve that we are capable, we can close the valve sooner on the 4-valve and get more power, trapping efficiency. Whenever you only want the valve to open when the piston's going down and the atmosphere can go in behind the valve and get in the cylinder. And as soon as the piston turns around and starts coming back up, you want to shut that valve. And if you close it too soon, you're missing out on how much power you could have got trapped. If you close it too late, you're letting air leak out that hurts your horsepower. So there is not one cam fits all, y'all. It's just not that way. If it was, there would be an easy button. You'd look it up on the internet, you Google it, and you say, I need a cam, shaft, timing, question, easy button. You push that button, and now it'll tell you what perfect cam. There's too many variables for that to be true. Now at Star, we have our Thrasher kits, and we've developed the valve sizes, the timing of the camshafts, the piston dome size, the static compression ratio, and the camshafts build us the dynamic compression ratio that we need. And then someone asked me today about octane on the gasoline. The gasoline sets our limits. If you have racing gas, you can trap lots of air and you can make a lot of power, and if it tries to detonate, you just put a better octane gasoline in to suppress the detonation. High octane gasoline is not for horsepower, it is for detonation suppressant. You want the lowest octane you can run without detonating, and that's hopefully will make the most BTUs of heat to generate horsepower. So I'm talking a little bit around in circles on that idea, but please understand that the combination is so important. And as we move along on this Tech Talk Tuesday thing, we'll iron these out and we'll put them in our sights and maybe do a better job of picking out each subject. But I got a lot of great suggestions today, and I made some notes. Another one that was important was, what's the piston to head clearance that you want to run? When you buy mail order kits, you buy a kit from Fuel Moto or T-Man or Star Racing Power or whoever, Wiseco, S&S, you buy these kits, they come with, some of them come with gaskets, some of them don't. But you, the guy that puts the engine together, you are responsible for what is the deck height. Now the deck height is how close the piston is to the head. Take the head off, put the cylinder on there, piston goes up to the top. Check the deck height there. Is the piston below deck? Is it above deck? How far? Is it 0 to the deck surface? If it's 0 to the deck surface, then you need at least a 40 thousandths thick head gasket. If it's 4 or 5 thou out of the top of the cylinder, you need at least a 45 thousandths. Now, people say, yeah, I can run closer piston to head clearance. Well, there's a diminishing return in how much power you gain going down the road of unsafe. Somebody says, I run 30 thou piston to head. Well, that wouldn't work for everybody. Because if you have really heavy pistons, really heavy wrist pins, you got loose rods, and you got a guy that over revs it continuously, something's going to hit something, and it's not going to be pretty. So the goal during the run or during the riding, when you're riding your motorcycle, you want it as close as you can get without it touching. So that static deck height will be whatever you set on the bench or in the bike, and then when you're going down the road, it's going to be closer than that when you're going down the road. Now also, the bigger the bore, you guys, the more it rocks. The more it rocks, the more the piston hits the head when it rocks over. It's going to rock over. When it comes up, rocks over, goes back down. Comes up, rocks over, goes back down. So when you have 0 deck and you have a less than 40 thousandths head gasket and you got a 4.5 bore, it goes up and it'll lean over and hit the head, lean over and hit the head. Eventually, it will cause some problems, because if it piston continues to touch the head, you can generate a little bit of aluminum dust, and as soon as that comes off and gets in the atmosphere in the combustion area, you'll have your octane numbers will go way down, and then you'll start pinging, detonating, and then some of the aluminum dust that's generated from that rubbing the piston on the head could get stuck to the cylinder walls, and as soon as you get aluminum on the cylinder walls, then you start seizing rings and seizing pistons, and it starts overheating and getting hot. There's a lot of reasons people think they sunk their engines. They have piston head clearance is too close. They have cylinder wall to piston skirt too close. They'll have end gaps on the rings too close and touching. We'll have to go over that another time. But end gaps are very important to talk about, because you want the same thing with piston head clearance. You want the ring end gap to be as close as it can be without touching in a dynamic state. That means when you're running at full speed, full temperature, operating temperature, you do not want the rings to butt. You do not want the head to hit the cylinder, hit the head. You don't want the piston to hit the head. Okay, it looks like we're just about out of time. I want to tell you guys that Steve Johnson's crew chief, Jock, Erwin Allen, he came out of East ICU, I think it is ICU, or I wanted to say ECU, but that's an engine control unit. But anyway, he's got a more conventional room now. Steve went to see him. I saw on Facebook where they were all cheering for him, coming down the hall, riding him out of ICU to his regular room now, where they can do different. They don't have as much emergency care on him, but he's been on the ventilator for a long, long time. And there's not many people that had the real COVID-19 virus where their lungs were full of fluid and their lungs got hard where they couldn't breathe. They couldn't inhale, so they had to put the machine on him to inhale for him. Now he's got the ventilator out, and he's been to put a trach in it now where they can actually help him breathe. And he's learning how to do it on his own now. They keep taking it loose so they can see if he can breathe on his own now. And I'm not 100% up to date on it, but I wanted to tell y'all that it's a great story for Jock, because I think it was 80% of the people that went on a ventilator didn't make it out without us losing their life, and we're losing that person. So Jock's a great guy. You guys prayed. You guys sent money to the GoFundMe page. You guys, all of us Jock has a lot of fans. So I just wanted to thank you all for him, his family, and his team for looking out for him. And I want to tell you guys, thank you. Oh, these are all the stuff. You guys listen to me now. This is my opinion. This is not the gospel. This is not the only way that engines work, okay? Standard deal. I'm going to tell you that if you don't agree with me, I am thankful for you. If you have a better idea of how this works than me, please let me know, because I am still learning. I am learning so fast. I even learned about how this camera and how this stuff worked today, and I almost got frustrated with it. But you guys stuck with me. Thank you so much for that. And stay tuned. Write me, George@starracing.com. Facebook me at George Bryce on Facebook, or at Star Power, and then also my Instagram. Thank y'all. May God bless.